order. Before I invite the person who's going to pray for us, I want to request that we all be upstanding, observe 1 minute of silence in remembrance of our children who passed on last week. Thank you so much. You may remain standing. I want to call our pastor this morning, Pastor Edna. She's a lay pastor, to come and pray for us. Edna.
Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we come before you. We want to thank you for the gift of life. We want to thank you for this country that you have given unto us, the leadership that you have bestowed to run the matters of this country. We surrender this country to you and pray that you guide us and make decisions that help us achieve that which we are called to as a leadership. Father in heaven, as we start off this process of the budget that will form the basis upon which we chart our agenda going forward, I pray for your presence, guidance, wisdom, that we may do that which helps us achieve what you intended of us for this country and for humanity. I pray that you'll be with us throughout this journey in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Thank you so much. Let's be seated. Thank you. Thank you. CS National Treasury, the Chair of Council of Governors, Madam Anne Waiguru, the PSA's present, the Chair Budget and Appropriation, of various committees from National Assembly who could be in here, accounting officer. Good morning. Good morning once again. I know we have never had a launch on a Monday, and it looks quite tricky, but this is the day that the Lord had set for us to have this meeting. And so I just want to ask you to turn to your neighbor. Just get to know your neighbor. Just get to know your neighbor as just get to know your neighbor. It is important. Yes. Thank you. I now want to call our Principal Administrative Secretary, who is the chair of this session, to come and progress from this point moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyona. Honorable Cabinet Secretary, CPA John Badi, PSS and accounting officers who are present, the chair of the Council of Governors, the various chairs of parliamentary committees that relate to our budget process, our cooperating partners, the media, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you all to this session where we mark the launch of the preparation process for the budget of financial year 2025-26 and the medium-term budget. Mine is brief, just to welcome you and to encourage you to sit through until the end of the program. According to the program, we are scheduled to finish at around 1. Allow me, therefore, to take this opportunity to invite the Principal Secretary, National Treasury, Dr. Chris Kipto, to make his remarks and progress with the program. PS Karibu.
Honorable CPA John Badi Ngongo, Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Economic Planning, Principal Secretaries and Accounting Officers present, Chairpersons of the Budget and Appropriation Committee, Finance and Planning Committee, Public Debt and Privatization Committee, and the Council of Governors, development partners, the media fraternity, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Hamjambo. Assalamu alaikum. May I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to the launch of the fiscal year 2025-26 and the medium-term budget making process. This launch marks the official start of the budget preparation process, which will run for the next 10 months. During this period, we will be expected to deliver the following outputs within the timelines provided in the budget calendar. One is the program performance review reports. The second is the 2024 budget review and outlook paper, famously known as BROP. The third is the sector budget proposals. The fourth is the 2025 budget policy statement. The fifth is the division of revenue bill. The sixth is the county allocation of revenue bill. And seventh is county government's additional allocation bill. And finally, number 8, the estimates of revenue and expenditure and supporting documents. We are therefore required to remain vigilant to ensure that the legal timelines for submission of these documents are complied with. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to remind ourselves that prioritization and allocation of resources is done within the sector working group framework. All accounting officers are therefore expected to fully participate in this process. Sector working groups are required to develop sector budget proposals for the fiscal year 2025-26 and the medium-term budget after a thorough review and analysis of past performance and the guidelines provided. As provided in Treasury Circular number 11 of 2024, accounting officers should submit their performance review reports before bidding for resources. To ensure sector working groups commence the budget making process immediately, the outgoing sector chairpersons should immediately convene the first sector working groups meetings to confirm or elect sector chairpersons to coordinate the process. In view of resource constraints, the government has emphasized on a zero-based approach to budgeting. To implement this, we have developed a budget costing tool in the IFMIS budget module. Accounting officers are required to submit the fiscal year 2025-26 budget baseline information to the National Treasury by close of business today, Monday, 9th September 2024, as provided in the Treasury Circular. To ensure adequacy and completeness of the baseline information, we will hold review meetings and capacity buildings of ministries, departments, and agencies on budget costing, which will be communicated in due course to facilitate preparation of the 2024 budget review and outlook paper. To entrench zero-based budgeting, the National Treasury, in collaboration with the Council of Governors and our development partners, have also developed the National Government Budget Manual and the County Government Budget Manual to guide the budgeting process. The manuals have incorporated the concept of costing of government programs and projects. This will also be launched today alongside the guidelines for the fiscal year 2025-26 and the medium-term budget. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we have commenced the implementation of the fiscal year 2024-25 budget. We, however, continue to receive requests for additional funding. In view of the current fiscal constraints, I wish to urge accounting officers to align work plans to be within the approved estimates and prioritize outstanding commitments, pending activities within the context of the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. And I dare say that I think we have never been in this kind of situation, because every day, CS, I get accounting officers, literally everybody asking for resources here, resources there. So it is important, and I know you will be making an announcement on how we will get out of this shortly. So it is, with these few remarks, it is now my humble duty and pleasure to invite the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, MP and Chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee of the National Assembly, to make his remarks. Karibu Mheshimiwa.
Thank you very much, our PS, National Treasury, our CS and my elder brother, Honorable John Badi, our PSs for the National Treasury and also for planning, that is Dr. Kipto and Mr. Mohati, our chair of COG, Madam Anne Waiguru, who is also the governor for Kirinyaga, the distinguished many guests that I see in this hall, and also other visitors. Good morning. I just wish to make very brief comments on this process. But even before I proceed, I first of all want to congratulate my brother, Honorable John Badi, for being appointed the CS for National Treasury, because this is the first time that we are meeting in this kind of process when he is actually not a member of parliament like myself. So karibu sana waziri. We have met here before, and the previous session we actually met in the Kenya School of Monetary Studies on the initiation of this process of budget making. And this process should not be a ritual. It should be an objective, practical process. Because most of what then happens in the year, in the culmination of the CS giving the highlights in the National Assembly, and also the assent of the appropriations bill by the President, the beginning of that journey is actually today. Many times we get people coming at the wee hours of the night, in quotes, in the budget making process to come to canvass for resources. Unfortunately, it's always very late, because we need to take this process with the weight it deserves, especially at the beginning, other than coming when the process is almost complete, when we get a lot of phone calls with the PS and of course with the CS, with the accounting officers canvassing for resources. But I also want to give just a few pointers. One, I live in Kenya, yes, and we see that we deserve to do more as leaders, and especially insofar as the Kenyan people are concerned. And that is what we should do more. But looking back, many times it is not fair for us to engulf ourselves with only doom and gloom, because Kenya has been doing well insofar as especially parameters of economies are concerned. Because looking at Kenya, and especially the year that is already complete, that is 2023, calendar year, our GDP grew by a modest 5.6%. Looking globally, Kenya was ranking among the 25th fastest growing economies in the world. And I don't think that is a bad thing, it is a good thing. Secondly, the other parameter, if you look at our currency, and especially for the last 1 year, that is the calendar year, and even within this year alone, within this year we have seen our currency gaining close to 20% against the greenback, or the US dollar, against the local currencies even more, or better. And therefore, I think on that front also, Kenya is not doing so badly. On the other front of inflation, where we measure now the real cost of living, even before I go to the jargons, if you look at the cost of unga, which is our staple food here in Kenya, that is ugali, or maize, githeri, where I come from, it is the same plant, or it's the same thing. Our unga has come down by almost 50%. And I also think that is a good thing. But even in terms of jargons, our inflation in the month of July was around 4.3%. Our inflation last month, which just closed the month of August, was 4.4%. And our benchmark as Kenya in terms of inflation is 5%. And of course, with a band of 2.5% either way. And therefore, we are actually dealing with the lower band of our inflation because it is below 5%. In fact, if we continue getting the kind of progress we are getting, Waziri, you may now start dealing with a bigger problem of deflation probably in future. And therefore, I'm just trying to say that even when there is a push for us to do better, which is very important, we also have to celebrate that Kenya is becoming a very progressive economy, has come of age, and I'm saying so with humility, and especially based on empirical figures, which are generated here internally, but also acceptable globally by other institutions. The other thing I would just want to say around those figures is that probably what we may need to look at as we look forward is that I should not be coming here as budget chair to convince Kenyans how the economy is growing. It is the Kenyan people who should be telling me the economy is growing. And therefore that calls upon us, all of us in this hall, that all the policies that we make must advance an egalitarian society, must promote equality and equity, so that even as the economy grows, it should not be growing in such a forum. It should be growing in the pockets of the Kenyan people, and I think that is a component of making sure our resources are well distributed. The other thing is about our budget, because that is why we are meeting here. And we can only deal with our budget now with the pointer of the budget we are already implementing of 23-24, because that is the budget we are implementing. And I'd want all of us to look at this issue very, very objectively. The budget we are implementing is a budget of 3.88 trillion shillings. And I do want us to go together so that the solution may maybe partly come out of this hall. Out of the budget of 3.8 trillion, and that is after the fall of the finance bill, and therefore what followed was the supplementary one. The budget of 3.88 trillion shillings on the revenue side, because it's very important, we have 2.6 trillion shillings in ordinary revenue. And we have around 428 billion shillings in A&A, around 51 billion shillings in expected grants. And if you do the math, you see a hole there of 767 billion Kenya shillings, which is the deficit. But what is the expenditure side? Because that is what 100% of the people here, Waziri, I can guarantee you, never came here because of the revenue side. They came here because of the expenditure side. And especially a PS or an accounting officer, the primary reason they are here is to know ultimately, after the sector working groups, how much am I controlling? But then, in the entirety of it, on the expenditure side, 2.2 trillion shillings is going to national government expenditure, which out of that, around 1.59 trillion shillings is recurrent. And I'm not just mentioning these figures, there is a reason. Out of that then, 641 billion shillings is development. 641. 410 billion shillings is the reason why the chair of the COG is here. It is going to our counties as equitable share. Now, the elephant in the room, 1.23 trillion shillings is CFS, Consolidated Fund Service. What is it? Can you imagine, my colleagues, dear Kenyans, out of that 1.23 trillion Kenya shillings, 1.008 trillion is money that is evaporating in the thin air. because it is payment of interest rates out of our financial obligations. So even as we come and read a huge budget, it is imperative for us to know that even what we read, some of it actually never reaches the sharing table. It goes into the payments of the expenditure already incurred in previous years. And therefore, as we come here sharpening our knives as accounting officers on the portion we are going to cut, that is the real situation of our budget making process now. And the unfortunate bit is that even out of the figures that I've read, 68 billion shillings is actually carryovers. Money that we were to pay last year and never managed to pay. It is actually not entirely, because the entire carryovers were 218 billion Kenya shillings. We are only carrying over this financial year now that we are implementing from last. We have only carried over 68 billion Kenya shillings, primarily monies for counties, CDF, and of course pensions. And therefore, that calls for some retrospection. Now, I don't want to belabor the point, but I want to say this because I don't want to take very long. Waziri, many times the things that divide us as a country, whether in terms of the levels of government or the cross sections of our country, is on how we share resources. One thing that is very divisive in this country is how do we share resources. And that is almost unfolding, by the way, out of the CRA formula on equitable share to our counties. But I always think that even as we fight for how we share, the bigger fight should be on how we bake. Our Constitution of Kenya, this is a paradox, is very forthright and eloquent about how resources should be shared in a manner that is equitable and in a manner that is to promote growth across our country. But the entire Constitution of Kenya has no sentence about the GDP of Kenya. Neither do we have any mention about the revenues of our country. And I keep wondering, probably the fabric of our country. Probably we need, therefore, to also look inward, that even as we expend our energy on who gets what, probably we are chasing after a rabbit. Maybe we can come together and put our minds together as Kenyans, and probably there is an antelope in the forest that we should go there and get. An antelope which is bigger money, better resources, and therefore everyone gets more. And the reason I'm saying that, Kenya revenue to GDP ratio is 14% only. That with the economy projected of 18 trillion, the monies that I have read to the ordinary revenue is only a representation of 14% only. But these are complicated figures. Let me bring them home. The same revenue to GDP ratio in the economies that are very advanced, like OECD countries, is 34%. But those are far away. Let me come to our continent. South Africa is around 25%. Meaning, if we collected revenue the same way South Africa is collecting, this financial year, we will be collecting 4.5 trillion Kenya shillings as revenue in our country. And therefore, it means we will not be borrowing a single shilling. We will actually be retiring debts previously borrowed. But what is it that makes us therefore not correct? Maybe that's a burden I want to hand over to my brother, the CS. He will tell us. But probably part of the reason is that our economy is hugely informal. And therefore, that is some work to be done by the National Treasury and the KRA so that everyone contributes their fair share. That if we were collecting revenue in South Africa, we will be collecting 4.5 trillion Kenya shillings. We will spend all the money we have budgeted for, and mwisho wa mwaka, tuitisha wa Kenya namba ya simu, tuwatumie M-Pesa out of our surplus. That is the way it is. As I come to the conclusion, I am an optimistic Kenyan, partly because the factors within our country, God has favored us greatly, because our fiscal policies have worked around agriculture. That is why even our food prices have come down. But I'm also more optimistic with Kenya being part of the global economy. And, you know, economics, we say there is nothing absolutely true. It depends with the theory that you are looking at. When I see some jitters in the US about an impeding or issues around the economy, I don't want to be very brutal, that could happen, and especially triggered by the figures around unemployment rates. An impeding recession. As a Kenyan, unfortunately, for our brothers in the US, I think I smile. Because part of the reason why we are where we are in Kenya and the global south is because the US got a lot of inflation out of the COVID money. And therefore they have had to raise the Fed rate for so many times, 11 times consecutively. And they are still very rigid to ease up. So when I see some inflation, some recession fears, I am a bit happy myself, because a fear of recession can only be handled by lowering interest rates. And when the US Fed lowers interest rates, I think I become happier, because when we ease up the monetary policy around the globe, and we ease up the monetary policy locally, therefore credit will be more accessible, even government borrowing will be cheaper, and I think we'll be getting out of the situation we are in at a much faster rate. Otherwise, I just want to request, as I conclude, that we must endeavor to implement our budget conclusively. And especially National Treasury, please make sure the budget that we make is not for papers. It is a budget that must be implemented to the letter. When we put in money, for example, for confirmation of teachers who should be confirmed, there should be no much issues around who to do what. Communication should be done so that we deal with the problems, not the problems we are creating for ourselves. When we put in money for roads, let us expedite in releasing that money so that Kenyans, we can offer them services. We transfer the budget from the books to where the Kenyans are. Otherwise, I thank you, and may God bless Kenya. It's now my humble duty to invite my sister, Governor Anne Waiguru, the chair of COG, to give her remarks. Karibu sana, Governor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. The Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Economic Planning, Honorable John Bandi, the Chair of Budget in Parliament, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, the Principal Secretary, National Treasury, Dr. Chris Kiptoo, the Principal Secretary, Economic Planning, Mr. James Muhati, development partners present, directors present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am delighted to join you today for the launch of the budget preparation process for the medium-term period of 2025-26 and 2027-28. I was just mentioning to Waziri that for me this is very nostalgic, having spent very many years at the Treasury. We've been here many times doing the launch of the medium-term period. This process is not only vital for the national government, but also for the county governments, as we are keen on national development for realization of our shared vision of a prosperous and inclusive Kenya. As county governments, we recognize the importance of prudent financial planning to achieve the desired development goals. I laud the National Treasury for the collaborative approach taken to ensure that both the national and county governments achieve sustainable development. The budget process is key as it provides budget manuals. I wish to congratulate the National Treasury for this remarkable initiative to develop manuals that will guide and further simplify the budget-making process for those that took part in the development of the budget manuals. I assure you of the commitment by COG in coordinating the dissemination and collaborating with the National Treasury in the review and continuous capacity building of the manual. We look forward to an efficient and effective planning and budgeting process that is in tune with the Constitution and the whole public financial management framework. Before I sit down, allow me to just mention three things. One, of course, as you know and you have heard, every time we get the opportunity to have this conversation on the budget-making process, counties have one or two requests to make to the National Treasury. While we're making the plans for the budget, we would like to request that, as we do, that we also make clear plans on the disbursement of resources. As we speak, counties are in arrears about 3 months, with about 96.35 billion that hasn't been released to the counties, which is hampering service delivery and development project. We would be very happy that if we enhanced our capacity in terms of disbursements and make them a little bit more predictable, we would be able to achieve a lot more in terms of not just service delivery, but also development. The second issue that I would like to comment on is on the issue of the budget, where you have heard, as the Chair of Parliament has said, we have a budget of about 3.8 trillion shillings, of which 2.6 trillion is ordinary revenue. And when you look, we have about, maybe not very precise figures, but about 700 billion in deficit. I think while we sit here to start this process, Waziri, one of the things that your team may have to look at is how to deal with the challenges that we are facing in terms of revenue collection. And in my view, I do not think that revenue collection can increase or can be enhanced without deliberate efforts to stimulate the economy. And the best way to stimulate the economy is to ensure that we are expanding in terms of manufacturing and trade and grow the economy right from the bottom at the county's level. So my view is that other than just sitting down and saying this is what we are collecting right now, the team at Treasury needs to critically look at the ways that we can expand our base so that we can be able to collect the revenue that we require to run the country. Finally, this is a comment on the issue of the CRA proposed formula on the division of revenue. As you may be aware, the Council of Governors has completely rejected the proposed formula by CRA. And the reason we have done that is because the proposed formula causes about 24 counties to lose revenue, ranging from about 300 million, some even losing up to 900 million shillings per county. Our proposal again to CRA is that they need to relook at that formula afresh. We also urge the Senate and the Parliament to look at the formula afresh to ensure that whatever formula we come up with, that no county loses, and that the counties that are receiving less than 6 billion shillings, their revenue is enhanced so that the lowest is at about 6 billion shillings that would enable the minimum service delivery level at the smallest county. With those few remarks, I wish to thank you, and may this be the beginning of a productive budget-making process. Thank you very much. Let me now take this opportunity to welcome the CS National Treasury to make his remarks. Karibu Waziri.
Thank you very much. The Chair, Council of Governors, Governor Anne Waiguru, Principal Secretaries of the National Treasury and Economic Planning, both the Principal Secretary for National Treasury, Chris Kipto, and the Principal Secretary in charge of Economic Planning, James Muhati, other Principal Secretaries present, accounting officers, Chair, Budget and Appropriations Committee, my brother, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, with whom we have worked for long in Parliament, our development partners, members of the Fourth Estate, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Yeah, this is also this is going to be my first launch of this process as Cabinet Secretary. I know I have attended a few of these launches previously, but as a member of the National Assembly, today I'm coming in on a different capacity. But I want to echo what my brother Ndindi, I think it was Ndindi Nyoro who said it, that this shouldn't be a ritual to tick the box. This should be treated as a very serious exercise, as I will mention shortly. It is a launch with a difference. We are changing the mode and method of doing the budgeting, as you will hear shortly. And even in terms of accounting and reporting will shortly change, because we are moving from the cash basis of accounting to a accrual basis of accounting, which I will explain shortly. So it is my pleasure to be with you this morning for the official launch of the financial year 25-26 and medium-term budget preparation process. Indeed, this is my maiden launch of this process, as I've mentioned. And you'll remember that I recently issued guidelines on the preparation of the financial year 2025-26 and the medium-term budget in accordance with Article 220 of our Constitution and Section 35E and 36 of the Public Finance Management Act, which is Cap 412A. It is further to these guidelines that we are here today to officially launch the preparation process of the financial year 2025-2026 and the medium-term budget. Ladies and gentlemen, as we launch this process, it is important that we appreciate the economic environment within which we are operating. I know my colleagues have alluded and mentioned the economic space and economic environment, but allow me also just to echo a few issues around the same. In the global scene, economic growth is expected to remain subdued over the medium term as the effects of high inflation, restrictive macroeconomic policies, geopolitical tensions, and challenges in the Chinese economy weigh on our outlook. For many countries, the inflation remains the primary focus, but as the inflationary pressures continue to ease, especially in our economy, the global policy focus will increasingly shift to managing other risks to growth, such as the climate change, high debt sustainability, among others. The latest World Economic Outlook report indicates that global growth is projected to drop slightly to 3.2% in 2024 from 3.3% last year, before then recovering back to 3.3% in 2025. In the advanced economies, growth is projected at 1.7% in 2024 before rebounding to 1.8% in 2025. Several global factors pose risks to the outlook. Monetary policy regimes could remain tight for an extended period due to persistent inflation. We also are expecting heightened geopolitical tensions in the Middle East to continue and the risks which are associated with the Ukraine-Russia war and possible escalation in geopolitical politics could add to energy costs, disrupt international trade, and slow global growth. Now, coming back to emerging economies, actually the emerging economies have contributed a lot to the general growth in the world economy, especially the growth in the Indian economy. In the emerging markets and developing economies, growth is projected to remain stable at 4.3% in 2024 through to 2025 from a growth rate of 4.4% in 2023. So a slight drop there. When we come back to the sub-Saharan continent or African region, growth is projected to remain moderate at 3.7% in 2024 and possibly jumping to 4.1% in 2025. Kenyan economy is not immune to the global developments, and the combination of elevated inflation and high interest rates has resulted in lower growth over the past year. We are all aware that the interest rates have remained relatively high. In a bid to manage our inflation, our central bank has maintained the base lending rates at a relatively high rates, which has resulted to slower growth because the private sector is not accessing loans and finances as would be expected. This is our growth has been supported by strong agricultural and manufacturing activities underpinned by favorable weather conditions, strong service sector and macroeconomic environments, ongoing public infrastructure investments, especially in the housing sector, and sustained business confidence. The economy is expected to grow by 5.5% in 2025 as compared to 5.6% in 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, for the financial year 2025-2026, and the medium-term budget is being framed and prepared within the context I have just highlighted. The budget will also be anchored on the fourth medium-term plan, MTP4 of the Vision 2030, and continue to support the implementation of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. This will be achieved through continued implementation of a growth-responsive fiscal consolidation plan designed towards slowing down public debt without compromising service delivery. And our focus will remain the five pillars of the better with the largest impact on the economy and household welfare. And these are agriculture transformation or agricultural transformation. As I mentioned earlier in other fora, we must look at agriculture as a means to achieve an end, not agriculture or agricultural growth as an end in itself. We must have agriculture to support manufacturing if we have to realize significant growth. So agricultural transformation, number 2 is micro, small and medium enterprises or MSME economy, housing and settlement. Number 4 is healthcare, and lastly, the digital superhighway and creative economy. Further, the government will work towards ensuring responsible economic management to support economic inclusion and empowerment, broadening opportunities and promoting equity, attracting investment in key sectors like improving health and education outcomes by increasing access to healthcare and all levels of education and investing in priority skills. In this regard, the sector working groups will be required to undertake a thorough review of the proposed budgets and prioritize allocations accordingly towards improving productivity and achievement of MTP4 objectives. I'm emphasizing this because the recent challenges we have faced as a country is as a result of not paying serious attention to productivity or using budget to promote productivity. That has slowed down employment creation and has also affected inclusivity or inclusion.
So we must, as we work in our sector working groups, ensure that the priorities, the priority areas which would help in enhancing productivity are given more attention as opposed to other expenditures. So, ladies and gentlemen, the medium-term fiscal framework will be premised on the following assumptions. Number one is real GDP growth of 5.5% in 2025 and over the medium term. Two, inflation to be maintained within the target range of plus or minus 2.5% or 5%. We are currently within that range perfectly well, so we need to maintain that. Our interest rates to ease downwards and foreign exchange rates to remain stable over the medium term. Total revenue to improve gradually to reach about 7% of the GDP in the financial year 25-26 and over the medium term even to reach 20%. Total expenditure to decrease to below 21.5% of our GDP in financial year 25-26. So as you work in your sector working groups, bear in mind that our total expenditure must be maintained at below 21.5% of our GDP in the financial year 25-26 and over the medium term in line with our fiscal consolidation policy. Ladies and gentlemen, the implementation of the financial year 24-25 budget has commenced in earnest. However, it is important to note that following the withdrawal of the 2024 finance bill, the government has had to forego additional revenue measures. We have therefore implemented measures aimed at aligning our priorities with the available resources. That is why we came up with the supplementary budget 1 at a very early stage to cut on expenditures, to reduce expenditure in line with the projected revenue collection. And I want to speak to the accounting officers. Please take note that Treasury will not support any additional expenditures, especially in areas like hospitality, foreign travel, domestic travel, conferences. Please don't bring any request to Treasury for adjustments in those lines. They will not be approved. So to avoid disappointment and cursing the CS Treasury, please just operate within the budget you have. However difficult it is, just assume you are in your house and you earn a salary of 12,000, and that's what you have to survive with until the end of the month. Unless you want to go to a Shylock to get more money, where will you get additional expenditure? So, Treasury will not support additional expenditures. But, and this is the right time to say it, we must look for ways of managing the 2024-25 budget. I call it managing because we are barely managing the 2024-25 budget. Chair Budget Committee, I'm sure you agree with me. We are barely managing. This is not where we wanted to be, but we are here. The Finance Bill 2024, for the first time, a finance bill was lost in this country, and we are all aware. But legislation cannot stop. Legislation will always take place. So long as you do it with transparency, so long as you do it in a manner which respects the people's welfare, you will always come up with the legislations. So by tomorrow you will see an advert. I will be issuing a circular tomorrow inviting the public's participation to submit proposals on some legislative reforms to improve our current economic situation. We are giving Kenyans up to 20th of this month to talk to us. Kenyans from all walks of life. But more particularly, I would want to hear from professional bodies, private sector players, other stakeholders, the general public, the mamambogas, the fisher folk along Lake Victoria. I want to hear your opinion, and so tomorrow, be vigilant. You will see that advert, kindly respond. And then we will come up with legislative proposals which would help us not only manage the 2024-25 budget, but would go a long way in improving our economic situation for the future. We cannot continue to remain where we are. The chair budget has just told you, our intention as a country was to have a budget deficit of 597 billion. But now, we have a budget deficit of 767 billion, which is 170 billion more than what we had planned to have to realize and actualize a policy of fiscal consolidation. And we are doing it at a time when we are struggling to debt service the debt that we have already. So, probably where I disagree a bit with the chair budget is that the money we are paying to service the debt is not disappearing in thin air. It is money we are paying for commitments, for money that we used before in this country. Whether we misused it, that is our indiscipline and bad manners. We should not blame the people who gave us the money. It is upon us to make sure that we pay back. We must pay our debts. We have no issue. We have no two ways about it. There is no debt restructuring in this country. We will not accept it. We will not do it. We will manage our debts and pay and remain afloat. I think I don't want to overemphasize that. Let me proceed. I don't like written speeches because a number of times it puts you in a very awkward situation because you want to complete reading it and you have taken so much time, people are getting bored, so you don't know what to do with it. But please indulge me so that I can complete this. And especially given that this is my maiden one. Don't you think I should do the best? Yeah, so having got your approval, let me proceed. I don't know where I left, but what I should have said next was that, but where I left before I digressed was that we came up with rationalization, budget rationalization. So the next word should have been then, if I didn't digress, that this included rationalization of operational and development budget while protecting key social spending in education, health, and social protection. And you'll realize that we really protected expenditure on education. We have even enhanced expenditure on education to cater for the new funding of universities and to meet the CBA for teachers and other expenditure in education ministry. I wish to urge MDS to ensure that the areas targeted for austerity measure in government, in fact, that's why I don't like written speech. I'm not urging. Yeah? I'm actually directing MDS to ensure that the areas targeted for austerity in government are sustained during budget implementation. I spoke to that. We also acknowledge that a country's sustainability and economic growth depends on its ability to generate revenues to finance its development. The importance of domestic resource mobilization as a key driver of the development agenda is thus well established. And that is what I've spoken to. And just to emphasize again that we must make sure that KRA is reformed to collect more. The reforms are already underway. The National Treasury has developed the medium-term revenue strategy to enhance domestic revenue mobilization over the medium term. The strategy will guide tax administration to improve efficiency in the administration of tax laws, create tax rates that will enhance compliance, and build the tax base. I will surprise you. In the medium term, we want to reduce tax rates. We are not thinking of increasing tax rates. We are going to reduce VAT in the medium term from 16% to about 14%. We want to reduce other taxes, including corporation tax or corporate tax, from 30 to 25%, and even pay as you earn. This is the strategy. The thinking of the Treasury is not to increase the tax rate, is to reduce it. The strategy will strengthen the policy dimension towards fiscal consolidation process with a target to achieve the East African Community convergence criteria of fiscal deficit of 3% of GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to reaffirm our commitment to further reform public finance management to enhance efficiency, accountability, and prudence. And that is where now, accounting officer, please be alert. If you have been dozing over my presentation, now wake up a bit, because this is now where I need you. This is where I need your help. Yeah? Enhancing efficiency, accountability, and prudent use of resources. This will include implementing an end-to-end e-government procurement system aimed at enhancing transparency and accountability in procurement, as well as maximizing value for money. I know many people don't want this, but it must happen. The system, I'm told, needed 560 million. PS Treasury. That money must be made available. We must implement, and the money that we will save by bringing discipline in procurement process is much, much way above the 560 million we need to get this system. So this system must be rolling from January. Yeah? So there will be no excuses, no piloting anymore. We are piloting now. The system is currently undergoing piloting. That was the next word written for me here, but it's also in my head. In readiness for rollout to all MDS, including county governments, governor, UG governor, all the entire government, national 48, end-to-end procurement process. This broken system must just stop. To further strengthen management of public resources, we are in the process of transitioning from cash to accrual basis to improve cash management and enhance financial and fiscal reporting. That I mentioned. The accrual accounting will enable the government to account for all its assets and liabilities, including all government assets. At the moment, the government assets, nobody knows the value of land, buildings, whatever assets. No one can with certainty tell us this is what Kenya government has in terms of assets. So we are moving to that. Liabilities. Look at your pending bills. It's usually an appendage in the financial statement. It is for disclosure. It is going to form part. Any debt that you have will form part of our statements so that we can know whether Kenyan should be auctioned or liquidated or not. I have in this regard constituted a multi-agency task force team, which is headed by the Principal Secretary in the National Treasury to guide the rollout of this initiative. So Chris Kipto is in charge. We have also initiated reforms geared towards automating assets and inventory management in MDS as well as county government. When I was chairing Public Accounts Committee, the accounting officers, you know, the biggest challenge we had was this accounting for our assets. Yeah? You kept on saying, we are in the process, but we don't have money to do it. Treasury has not released money. Now that excuse will not be there anymore. The Public Accounts Committee chair will be enjoying holidays. Towards this end, we will soon be operationalizing the assets and inventory management modules in our IFMIS with a module for all MDS. This will enable the government to have full visibility of all assets and inventory and facilitate optimal assets utilization and ensure idle and unserviceable assets are disposed in conformity with the existing legal requirements. In the recent past, Kenyans across the country have demanded for more accountability and prudence and value for money in the use of public resources. In view of this, accounting officers should ensure that all expenditure made by your respective MDS is lawful and authorized. In addition, public spending should be effective, meet the objectives, should be efficient, economical, and transparent. If you have to do a 10-kilometer road, First of all, that road should exist, effective. If it exists, has it been done properly? Efficiency. If it is done properly, did you get the lowest cost for it? Economy. And finally, how did you get there? Is everyone convinced that you are fair to everybody, including contractors? Transparency. You are therefore reminded to provide information on any fraud, losses, or any violation of public finance management laws, and give explanation for the actions you are taking or taken to prevent a similar problem in the future. We remain committed to ensuring strong governance to achieve this objective. In this regard, the government has prioritized proper and effective functioning of the Office of the Auditor General, and the Office of the Auditor General is here, the Office of the Controller of Budgets, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, as well as the judiciary and all the players in the administrative justice value chain. But let's not reach here. Let's not go to judiciary. Let's not go to Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Don't wait for Auditor General to discover that things are not running well in your department. Do it yourself and do a report on the actions you are taking so that we can see that your department is improving. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, we have established a pending bills verification committee to carry out a thorough analysis for all pending bills for the period 1st July 2005 to 30th June 2022 and formulate measures to stop accumulation of pending bills going forward. The committee is expected to complete its work and submit a report by October 2024, which is just a month away. This report will inform the measures to be undertaken within the fiscal framework. I also wish to remind accounting officers to ensure that expenditure carryovers from financial year 23-24 budget are treated as first charge on financial year 24-25 budget and accommodated within the approved budgetary provision for MDS without seeking for additional funding as guided in Treasury Circular number 10 of 2024. You know what I'm talking about. This provision is in the PFM Act, but accounting officers, for one reason or another, don't follow it. You pay new bills, you forget about the old bills. I don't know why. So make sure that all the pending bills from 23-24 are settled as first charge. As we commence the preparation of the next budget, I am aware of the challenges we are currently facing as a country. These include less than ideal revenue performance, escalation in our public debt and debt servicing, expenditure carryovers and accumulation of pending bills, as well as increased requirements for funding priority interventions. These continue to exert pressure on limited resources. And as Honorable Ndindi Nyoro told you, we carried over 218 billion we didn't settle in the previous financial year. We only factored in about 68 billion in the current year's budget. The remaining amount remain pending bills, so you must try to accommodate them within your budget, the budget of your MDS. The money that we carried over for the county government, the 30 billion, we settled it. But, but the governor is right that we have not made payment for July, August, and maybe now September. And countries are almost grinding to a halt. I want to speak first to Parliament. They should fast track the passage of CARA. But Governor, for your comfort, I've just sought opinion of the Attorney General today to agree with us that we can make advance payments to counties. There are divided opinion whether we should do that or not. But I think if we don't, counties are going to grind to a halt. And I don't think that would be good for this country. So let me wait for the opinion of the Attorney General, then we can act appropriately. In view of this, the government will continue to pursue a fiscal consolidation policy with the overall aim of reducing fiscal deficit and debt accumulation. The strategy focuses on enhancing domestic revenue mobilization, rationalization, and prioritization of expenditures while safeguarding priority government programs and social spending. The government will further entrench the adopted zero-based budgeting approach in the preparation of the financial year 2025, 2026, and future budgets. Zero-based budgeting. From this year, we are not going to assume you have been spending this much, so we can add you. We are moving away from incremental budgeting to zero-based. you start afresh. Explain every expenditure, every coin that you are going to ask for, you will have to explain. This will curtail misallocation of resources inherent in incremental approach and eliminate unnecessary costs associated with inefficiency and duplication in public spending. To implement zero-based budgeting, the National Treasury has developed the budget costing tool in the IFMIS budget module for the national government, which has incorporated standardized costing methodologies to streamline calculation of budget baselines and prioritization to give credible base for preparation of budget estimates. So there is a tool for you. I therefore expect that sector working groups will ensure that all expenditure items in the financial year 25-26 budget are justified and emphasis is placed on allocating the limited resources based on program efficiency and requirement rather than incremental budgeting. Ladies and gentlemen, the government is operating under constrained fiscal environment. In view of this, prioritization during resource allocation will be critical in ensuring low priority expenditures are dropped or deferred to give way to high priority service delivery programs. Therefore, sector working groups should eliminate wastage expenditures and pursue priorities which are aimed at safeguarding livelihoods, creating jobs, reviving businesses and economic recovery in general. So sector working groups should therefore redirect resources to these areas. Number one, programs that enhance value chain and linkage to better priorities. Two, foster implementation of government priorities emphasized through presidential directives and cabinet decisions. Three, completion of ongoing projects, stalled projects, and payments of verified pending bills. Four, programs that support mitigation and adaptation of climate change. We can't run away now from climate change. It is the talk of the world. And finally, furtherance and implementation of our Constitution. So those are the key areas that you should pay attention to. Public participation, ladies and gentlemen, is also an integral part of our public finance management system. Article 201 of the Constitution and Section 35(2) of the Public Finance Management Act makes it a mandatory requirement in the design of public goods and services and the associated spending. It is in view of the importance attached to public participation that the National Treasury and Economic Planning during the preparation of 2024-25 and the medium-term budget conducted an elaborate countrywide stakeholder engagement on the budget process. I wish to ask sector working groups to ensure that the medium-term priorities arising from this process are considered and prioritized in the preparation of the financial year 25-26 and the medium-term budget. I wish to emphasize that the National Treasury will ensure it fulfills its legal mandate in ensuring a more participatory approach in the management of our financial matters. In equal measure, I also wish to urge sector working groups to embrace meaningful participation during this process by identifying and engaging stakeholders to obtain input during the budget preparation process. Ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution and the Public Finance Management Act requires timely preparation of key policy documents and bills for approval by Cabinet and Parliament. In this regard, accounting officers are expected to strictly follow the schedule of activities outlined in the budget calendar provided in the Treasury Circular number 11 of 2024. Finally, and I thank God it is final, I just want to assure you that my office remains open to consultations and new ideas that will add value to the process. This should not be the last engagement with the sector working groups. The National Treasury and Economic Planning will also be available to provide the necessary support required throughout the process. And with those many remarks, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my humble duty to officially launch the budget preparation process for the financial year 25-26 and the medium term. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CS. I think he deserves more than that. Can we give him another applause? Thank you. I think we are fully launched to progress. CS National Treasury, sir, we want to move into another small session, a session where you will be unveiling the critical documents that will be used by the sectors in terms of preparing the budget, including the document that Governor Anne Waiguru mentioned that we jointly prepared with the counties, which is the county budget manual. We have the national government budget manual. We also have, in a form of a booklet, the guidelines that you issued last month that guide the preparation of this process. Before I request you and the team that is on the I table to get to the unveiling booth, allow me just to say a few things about this process. One, CS, you may wish to note that the two documents have been prepared using the internal capacity that exists in government, both at the county and the national government. Of course, we did borrow quite a lot from the region. And in this regard, we also did bring some technical assistance from our partners, development partners, the IMF, East Afritac. We did receive a lot of support in terms of printing the documents that you are going to launch CS from our development partners, and in particular JICA. And I want to take this opportunity to really appreciate JICA for coming in and supporting government, with, of course, focus being building that capacity at the county government. I also want to mention that JICA also did commit that they would support the national government, that is the National Treasury, to work with the counties in terms of building the capacity of the county PFM staff in this process. Having said that, CS, it is now my pleasure to request you and the team seated on the I table to walk down to the unveiling booth. There is I hope there is a mobile mic. I want to walk down and speak from down there. Do we have a mobile microphone? The team that is guiding us. If not, then can I ask this one? Yeah, it is now my pleasure to welcome the CS and the team that is at the podium to come down to the unveiling booth. Let's clap for them as they walk down so that we can give them some bit of push. CS, I was told to ask you to stand here, and I will be counting from 1 to 10, and when I get to 10, you will press this without putting your hand on this yellow. You just press the yellow, the green button. Okay, so we will begin the countdown. So we start from 10. Count with me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, And now you can press. That is, wow. It looks good, and we'll ask the team that is here. This is complimentary. It is not wasteful. It is a complimentary that we got from our host, KICC, recognizing that the CS is doing his maiden launch. And so we will ask the CS maybe to cut that. Okay. There is a photo to be taken. I want to request my DG Mwenda. Are you okay? I hope we have a number. Do we have many, so that we can ask the accounting officers to come down and receive these documents from the CS, the few who are there. So you can just quickly, accounting officers present, please walk down to the podium so that the CS can distribute these documents to you. Yes, there is a county government budget preparation manual. We also have the national government budget preparation manual, and we have the guidelines in form of a booklet. And so you can just distribute it freely. Yes. Thank you, our Auditor General. At least we have given instructions on what to be audited. We have COB here, so COB you can also move. Office of the Control of Budget. Please, yes. Give them to the CS to be shaking hand with the Control of Budget. That is a representative of the Office of the Control of Budget. Okay, then we have OPCS, so you can also take a photo. Just pass over the books to, right? Good. So without mentioning, feel free, just shake the hand. We will take another 2 minutes to take a photo with the CS, National Treasury, as you receive the books. And once you have received the books, you can clear you can go back to your seats so that we decongest this place. Okay? So we have enough copies that you can pick as you leave the place, for those ones who have not managed to get. And yes, it's just symbolic. You need to pick one, you can get the rest out there. IBC CEO, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you risk forgetting your accounting officers. You haven't given them the PS National Treasury and the PS Economic Planning, so they need to formally receive the documents from you. Yes, the PS, you need to shake the hand and take that photo with the PS, right? Thank you so much, PS, the National Treasury, and thank you for guiding the process. Thank you, thank you. The books will be available for those ones who are not lucky here. You can pick them on your way out. Thank you, CRJ. Thank you, and thank you for supporting the process. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll now thank you. We'll have the e-copies in the Treasury website just in case you don't get a copy. Thank you so much, Governor Waiguru. Thank you, Chair, Budget and Appropriation Committee, and thank you for supporting the process. Thank you. I think with that, we can now request the CS to go back to podium. Asante sana. So from here, PS, I hand over to you to chair the next session.
Before we go for break, we are going to have one presentation by James Muhati, the PS for planning, economic planning. And he's going to make a presentation on the key highlights of the medium-term plan 4 priorities. That is MTP 4 priorities. Welcome, Mr. Muhati.
Thank you, yes. First, I want to start by to acknowledge the following: the CS for National Treasury and Economic Planning, Honorable CPA Mbadi, Her Excellency Madam Anne Waiguru, the Chairperson of the County Governors, and also the Governor of Kirinyaga County, and Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, MP, and the Chairperson for Budget and Appropriation Committee of the National Assembly, my colleague PS, Dr. Chris Kipto, the PS for National Treasury, and my fellow colleagues who are here. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. PS has asked me also to acknowledge the presence, I think, of all of the CEOs and the accounting officers from the MDS and the independent commissions. We have the Auditor General here. We have the Electoral Commission CEO. We have the Chief of Staff, Prime Cabinet Secretary's Office, the PSs who are present here, the PAS from the HOPE's office, and all of you that we may not be able to recognize you. My presentation is very short, is to take you through the key priorities for the 4th medium-term plan, 2023 to 2027 priorities. So it's very visual, so it will be quite easy. So first, I'll be able to share with you about the background, about what MTP4 is all about, and then the MTP4 key priority programs by sector, and then the MTP4 sector performance for financial year 2023-2024. Some of the challenges that we have encountered during this process of the implementation of the plan and the MTP focus areas for the financial year 2025-2026, and then I'll be able to share with you some of the publications that will be useful in this process. In terms of the background, as we are aware, the country has a blueprint, a plan. This is the Vision 2030, which was launched. And the Vision 2030 is a 22-year plan, which is coming to an end in the year 2030. The objective or the aim of the vision then and still is to be able to transform Kenya into a newly industrializing, middle income country by providing a high quality of life to all its citizens in a clean and secure environment by the year 2030. Now, this long-term plan, the vision, which is a 22, is implemented in 5-year plans, which we call the medium-term plans. As you can see, we have the first medium-term plan, which was in 2008, and whose theme was a globally competitive and prosperous Kenya. And then there was the one that followed, and then there was a third one, which was in 2018 to 2022, whose theme was transforming lives, advancing such socio-economic development through the Big Four agenda. So now we have the fourth medium-term plan. So it's called fourth because it's the fourth one, as you can be able to see. And the fourth medium-term plan was launched on the 21st. You can move to the next slide. On the 21st of March 2024 at State House. And after that, it was followed by dissemination. It was disseminated to about 38 counties by the cabinet secretaries. The fourth medium-term plan is best and driven by the following, which I'll be able to discuss with you better, and then the better priorities, and then the value chain approach, what it is, I'll be able to explain, and the MTP4 priority programs. Now, what is the bottom-up economic transformation agenda? The bottom-up transformation agenda, number one, is geared towards economic turnaround through a value chain approach. I'll also be able to explain that shortly. Better targets sectors with a high impact to be able to drive the economy recovery and growth, and then better ensures rational resource allocation by eliminating wastage of resources, and then also better provides impetus for achievement of the Kenya Vision 2030 goals and the MTP4 objective. Now, we have the better core pillars, which are 5. We have agriculture, MSME, housing and settlement, healthcare, and the digital superhighway. Now, the objectives of better, if you listen to the CS, this has been highlighted. One is to be able to bring down the cost of living by lowering the annual inflation rate to 5%. As you have heard, we are at about 4.3%. Of course, eradicating hunger and creating about 1.2 million jobs annually, and expanding the tax base to increase revenue collection to about 19.7% of the GDP by the year 2027, 2028. And then, of course, improving the Forex balance through promotion of exports in order to improve our reserves to at least 6.1 months of import cover. And then achieve inclusive growth, leaving no one behind, the better objectives. Now, we have what we call the better sectors. We have 5 of them. We have what we call the finance and production sector. I'll be able also to show you this. The infrastructure sector, social, environment and natural resources, and governance. Now, what we did was, in the coming up with the MTP4, was to be able to align these MTP4 sectors, the 5 sectors, to be able to align and map them into the 25 MTP3 sectors, and I'll be able to show you just in the next slide. If you go to the next slide, you will be able to see that in the 25 MTP sectors, we have financial services, agriculture and livestock, trade and manufacturing. Those 4 sectors were mapped into the MTP4 sectors, or better sectors, that we are calling finance and production. And this covers the following ministries: the National and Treasury and Economic Planning, agriculture and livestock, cooperatives and MSMEs, investment, trade and industry, ESC, and so on and so forth. So you can be able to see, and this we've shared with all of you, and you can be able to identify which beta sector you belong to. So I'll move to the next one, the explanation around the value chain. This is what the Cabinet Secretary was talking about, looking at agriculture as a means and not an end in itself. This is actually the value chain approach that is used in the MTP4 in terms of the planning for the programs and activities. To be able to attain the MTP4 objectives, the 5 MTP4 sectors are targeting or to pursue a value chain approach in the implementation of identified key priorities. So the value chain basically just describes the production to market linkages and end-to-end planning in terms of the activities and even costs from production all the way to market access. Now, the MTP4, the beta focuses on 18 value chains. As you can be able to see, they are listed there. We have leather and leather products, dairy, tea, rice, and so on. And then we have others: maize, potatoes, pyrethrum, beef, coffee, and so on. There are 18 that beta is focusing on. Now, the MTP4 are key priority programs by sector. I'll just highlight a few of these. These are not all, but these are just a highlight. If you look at the finance and production sector, we have 68 priority programs and projects. And the key priority programs, this is just among others, include the livestock and crop value chains. We have also the MSME development. We have, for example, the enhancement of revenue collection, which is one of the key priority program under the National Treasury and Economic Planning. If you move to the infrastructure sector, it has 86 priority programs and projects. Among them include the following. For example, we have the construction and the rehabilitation and maintenance of roads. I'll be able to highlight some of the things that we have been able to achieve in some of these programs. In the social sector, there are 77 priority programs and projects, and some among them, as you can be able to see, we have the health infrastructure and financing, we have education, social protection programs, and of course, the STI, the science, technology, and innovation. In the environment, we have 63 priority programs and projects. And among them, as you can be able to see, we have the blue economy on the issues around ocean governance. We have the climate change mitigation and adaptation. On the governance and public administration sector, we have 44 priority programs and projects. And the key priority projects, these are among the 44. We have the judicial reforms, which follow under this particular sector. We have the electoral and political processes. We have the issues on leadership, ethics, and integrity. Now, I want to move quickly to also highlight just a few of the achievements so far. within the MTP4 year one. You move to the finance and production sector achievements. I'm sure we can all be able to resonate with this. The real GDP has grown by 5.6% in 2023 as compared to 4.9% in 2022. The government revenue collected as at 30th of June was 2.7 trillion. 2.7 trillion against the target of 2.9. Inflation rate, this has dropped from 7.3% in July 2023 to 4.4% in August 2024. I would not want to belabor this, but these are just some of the examples. We can be able to see regarding maize, this is in the finance and production sector. The maize production has increased by 38.8%. This is about 34.3 million bags in 2022 to 47.6 million bags in 2023. The area under rice production has also increased to about 24,000 hectares. We have distributed about 235,000 metric tons of subsidized fertilizers. We have marketed milk, whose production has gone up, and so on. So I'll move to the infrastructure sector, and these are some of the achievements that have been made in the last 1 year. About 559 kilometers of roads, new roads have been constructed. A rehabilitation and maintenance of about 17,419 kilometers of rural and 32,519 of urban roads has also been achieved. 1,368 free public Wi-Fi hotspots. You all know about the GConnect project, have been set up. And then we have about 8,959 kilometers of fiber optic that has been put in place. In the social sector, we have achieved 100% transition from primary to junior secondary school. We have constructed about 6,270 secondary classrooms and 9,000 laboratories, and about 63,000 youth at NYS have been trained. On the environment sector, among the achievements so far is the production of about 973 million tree seedlings and about 300 million tree seedlings planted. We have rehabilitated about 28,000 hectares of agroforestry in ASAL areas. I'll move on to governance and public administration sector. Some of the key achievements, of course, the usual one is the remittances, which now stands at about 580 billion that has come into the country. Now, I want to move to the challenges that we have experienced in government during the process of the implementation of the MTP4. Of course, there has been a slow adoption of the value chain approach. And we have made efforts through our planning units and working together with the Economic Council of Advisors to be able to support this particular challenge. Of course, the challenge is, of course, the physical space in terms of the budgetary allocation. We have faced challenges in terms of the changing the dynamic climate and weather that has impacted most of our key activities and programs. Litigation that delays project implementation, inadequate human resource capacity, and slow uptake of emerging technologies. We now have the AI and so on. Data has been a challenge. Data quality has been a challenge. When we talk about data quality, we mean basically the accuracy, validity, completeness, and consistency, and timeliness. But we are working together with all the MDS through this, with the KNBS, in terms of ensuring that both the empirical and the administrative data is available for quick decision making. And then, of course, we have a weak intergovernmental coordination and engagement. Now, in terms of the focus for the 2025-2026, from the MTP4, these are the areas. We will continue on the programs that enhance the implementation of priority value chain and better priorities. This is raising agricultural productivity, transformation of the MSMEs, affordable housing programs, universal health coverage, and investments in digital superhighway and the creative economy. We'll also continue to focus on the priority policies, programs, and projects as per the MTP4 and the National Reporting Indicator Handbook. I'll show how it looks like because we have distributed this to all of you. And then areas on the human capital development, and then also as we go on the presidential directives and cabinet decisions. We shall also focus on programs that address, of course, climate mitigation and adaptation. Now, these are some of the publications that I'm sure you cannot see all of them clearly. I think the first one is the MTP4. You should have it. All of you should be having that in your offices. We do quarterly production of the status of the Kenya economy reports. We've done Q1, Q2, and even Q3. Those are available. We have this report, the third voluntary national review on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Actually, we just presented this report at the UN 2 months ago. This will give you the status on the implementation of the SDG goals within your MDAs. The economic survey for 2024 is out. This was launched, so that also will be able to give you some of the empirical data regarding your areas and your section. All these are also available on our website. The CS will be launching the Kenya Economic Report, the CARE report, on Wednesday. The Economic Indicator Handbook looks like this. The report, the National Reporting Indicator Handbook is the one that is right in the corner there. This has all the outputs. The outputs of the MTP4 on all the programs and the activities. And then we have also the Kenya Economic Report for 2023, and of course the Kenya National Population Policy for Sustainable Development, which was launched the other day. So with that, Chair PS, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
So let's appreciate PS Mohati again. I think we have done very well in terms of managing time. I see it's now 11:03. We had planned to finish the first session by 11. And so we will have a break for 30 minutes. At 11:30, we shall be back. And we will have Albert Mwenda moderate the session. Albert is the Director General for Budget, Fiscal, and Economic Affairs. We will have two presentations, one on macroeconomic outlook for the medium term by Musa Gadanje, Director of Macro, Fiscal, and Economic Affairs. And we'll have Francis Anyona present on way forward on the fiscal year 2025-26 and the medium-term budget process. Karibuni kwa chai. Thank you very much.